This is the first and possibly most important hidden detail in the first season, as it could imply that Foggy Nelson is still alive. 468 is the address of the establishment that sits beside the law firm of Nelson Murdock and Page, seen right as Matt, Foggy, and Karen walk out of their office in the pilot episode. And coincidentally, the overall 468th issue of Daredevil Volume 2 number 88 is about the secret life of Foggy Nelson. Penned by the great Ed Brubaker, this comic reveals that Foggy didn't actually die when he previously visited Matt in prison. Rather, Foggy was absorbed by the FBI's witness protection program after they helped him fake his death. Moreover, Vanessa Fisk was the person who orchestrated all this, and Foggy's fake death was just one step in a grand plan to send Daredevil to prison. So considering how parts of this comic book arc were adapted by Daredevil Born Again, Season 2 may just reveal that Foggy's been alive all along. Although Daredevil heard Foggy's heart stop in the pilot, this doesn't necessarily mean that he's permanently dead. After all, death has always been a fickle mistress in the MCU. Case in point, Nick Fury's heart also stopped in Captain America: The Winter Soldier after Bucky shoots Fury with a sniper rifle. And Fury not just returns, but also explains how he had taken a drug to slow his heart rate down to undetectable levels. So it's possible that Foggy pulled off a similar trick for a yet unknown reason in Born Again. Moreover, it's notable how a master marksman like Bullseye shoots Foggy in the back, seemingly missing his heart when he could have easily shot his head. And in relation to this, Bullseye may know exactly where to shoot a person in order to temporarily stop their heart. So whether there's credence to the theory that Foggy is still alive, what we know for sure is that it's within the bounds of possibility for this show. As with any MCU production, the devil is in the details, which brings us to our next blink and you'll miss it Easter egg. The Pym Van Dyne Foundation is referenced twice in Daredevil Born Again. During the New Year's Eve celebration in Times Square, Episode 2 shows the Foundation's logo flashing on an LED billboard. And in this scene, quite a number of people are also wearing comically tall hats with the same logo. Much later, in Episode 9, the logo shows up again on a billboard right before the city goes into a blackout. On one hand, this could just be a good example of world building 101. Details like this help anchor Born Again to the larger MCU. On the other hand, unlike similar Easter eggs, the Pym Van Dyne Foundation shows up not just twice, but also during crucial plot events, right as Fisk delivers his victory speech, and right before the blackout to justify Fisk declaring martial law. In short, this implies that the head of the Foundation, Hope Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, could be watching the Kingpin's progress, and she may just get directly involved in Season 2. In fact, the Pym Van Dyne Foundation uses Pym particles for humanitarian reasons, such as restoring long-dead forests and eliminating world hunger. And with Fisk transforming the economic freeport of Red Hook into his private city-state, the Kingpin may be unknowingly making an enemy of the Wasp, who could be depending on Red Hook for the Foundation's global efforts. Moreover, with Daredevil's army currently outnumbered by the Mayor's anti-vigilante task force, the Wasp's abilities make her the perfect spy for guerrilla tactics. So while Hope Van Dyne isn't officially confirmed to be in Born Again Season 2, she may just make a surprise cameo as a much-needed Daredevil ally. After all, Matt needs all the help he can get against Fisk, who has firmly established himself as the kingpin of crime in the Season 1 finale. Apart from Buck Cashman perfectly fitting the archetype of a mafia hitman, Born Again has at least 3 direct references to the New York Mafia. In Episode 7, Fisk, Buck, and Vanessa set a trap for Luca in a fancy restaurant where Fisk is dining alone. But this isn't just any Williamsburg dining spot. Founded in 1900, Bamonte's is actually the oldest Italian restaurant in the city, and it's notorious for being frequented by the mob since the 50s. When the Mafia killed the power-hungry Carmine Galante back in 1979, Bamonte's was where the 5 families of New York celebrated their victory. In relation to this, 5 families is also what Fisk's gangs call themselves, clearly modeled after the 5 real crime families that began operating in New York in 1931. Moreover, there's also a reference to the movie The Godfather in Episode 9. After Fisk orders Sheila to fire anyone who's not loyal to the mayor, she reluctantly agrees to clear City Hall of any potential liabilities. As Sheila walks out to execute Fisk's orders, a task force cop closes the door behind her, and the scene is shot just like the ending of The Godfather, when the door closes behind Kay Corleone. In The Godfather, Kay watches in horror as the Kappa regimes pay tribute to her husband Michael, finally realizing what she is actually married into, and much the same happens to Sheila in this scene from Born Again. Notably, Kay later divorces Michael and survives survives well until The Godfather 3, so maybe it's possible that should Sheila betray Fisk in season 2, she might walk away alive just like Kay Corleone. In any case, these subtle nods to New York's deep history of organized crime perfectly underscore the return of the kingpin of crime, and while Fisk may be a criminal, it's also undeniable that he's a born and bred New Yorker. In episode 7, Fisk wonders whether he's using the same desk used by Fiorello Henry LaGuardia, the legendary 99th mayor of NYC, and with Vanessa's help, Fisk happily confirms in episode 8 that it is indeed LaGuardia's desk that sits in his mayor's office.
This is actually Fiorello LaGuardia's desk.
As Fisk explains, his own father idolized LaGuardia, one of the most popular and charismatic figures in 20th century American politics. LaGuardia was a Republican who espoused socialist views, like easing restrictions on immigrants, supporting workers' rights, and pushing for progressive taxation. And while Fisk has very different causes in mind, he sees himself as the LaGuardia for the modern age, fearlessly tackling the vigilante problem that has plagued his beloved city. So Fisk genuinely believes that he's the savior that New York needs, blinded by his ambitions for himself and Vanessa, and his sheer love for the city he calls home. In fact, even Fisk and Vanessa's master plan is deeply rooted in New York history. As Karen and Matt find out in episode 9, Red Hook is actually a designated free port, so it serves as the perfect place for Fisk to establish the new seat of power for his criminal empire. And in season 1, Fisk successfully carries out his plan simply because he knows New York much more deeply than the heroes of the show. Meanwhile, there's one last hidden detail we're going to cover, and it shows up right before Matt and Karen find evidence about Red Hook. 266 is the number of the locker where Matt and Karen have stored their stuff from Nelson, Murdock, and Page. And as it happens, Daredevil number 266 and Nocenti's A Beer with the Devil is where Daredevil drinks a beer in a bar with Mephisto, the self-styled devil of the Marvel Universe. In this comic, the Daredevil of Hell's Kitchen spends Christmas night drinking in a bar. Alone but surrounded by fellow New Yorkers who have nowhere else to be, Daredevil soon encounters Mephisto, and rather than leaving the hero to mope by himself, Mephisto mocks Daredevil for his tortured thoughts, his qualms about being born again, and his double identity as a vigilante and lawyer. But could this mean that Mephisto will appear in Daredevil Born Again Season 2? It may sound crazy, but it's possible.
Would you be willing to make a deal?
While Born Again is mainly a street-level crime show, it also has subtle elements of fantasy, which in Season 1 is limited to the White Tiger amulet. So as Matt struggles with guilt over losing both Hector Ayala and Foggy in Season 2, Daredevil may just get visited by Mephisto in his dreams. This would allow both Matt and the viewers to question whether Mephisto is real, and in turn, this would allow the MCU to finally debut Mephisto, but without clashing with Born Again's crime noir look and feel. But what do you think? Does Marvel actually have the guts to introduce Mephisto in Daredevil Born Again Season 2? More importantly, is Foggy really dead? Or will the avocados at law ride again in the second season? Tell us your thoughts and theories in the comments. And thanks for watching Screen Rant.